right, my clock says 3:01, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So good afternoon. Thank you so much for everyone for joining this town hall. It's good to see everyone. I'm really glad to have Ginny Larimore here again to help moderate this session. She's done a really fantastic job moderating these sessions across campus. So just so everyone knows, this town hall is intended for the units that report to the president's office, including the Office of General Counsel, Internal Audit, Marketing Communication, University Events, and the president's office itself. All are welcome on the call, but I wanted to preface that because some of the information I'll be sharing was developed with that audience in mind. So this is our second round of town halls across campus. We wanted to hold this second wave after the budgets for fiscal year 21 had been set to address any questions that might have arisen out of that process or the related outcomes. And in addition, we wanted to ensure that as we move through our university roaring back plan, we have open lines of communication throughout the university so we can get information out there and then answer questions as they come up. So for today, I'd like to do a couple of things. First, I'd like to provide just a high-level overview of the President's Office budget, comparing our budget from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. We did make significant reductions, so I want us all to be kind of aware of what those are. And then secondly, I'd like to go through a high-level overview of what phase 4 of our roaring back plan looks like. The governor announced today that the state is moving forward in its Idaho rebound plan to their next phase, phase 4. So we are moving forward to phase 4 as well, which will be very similar to what the fall semester will look like. So some of those protocols will continue to be in place through the fall unless public health guidance changes. So after I cover those items, I'd like to open up the dialogue for any questions that you might have. So first, we'll get started with the budget. If Jen Forche, you wouldn't mind sharing your screen. Okay, perfect. So you can go to the next slide. So this slide shows an overview of what our budgets looked like for this fiscal year that we're just wrapping up and going into next fiscal year. So for the Office of General Counsel, they saw a reduction of over 92,000. Internal Audit, their budget remained consistent. University events, so this is the Stevens Performing Arts Center, Holt Arena, and the other event venues, so a reduction of approximately 50,000. Marketing and communications, if you'll note the little note at the bottom, they did make significant cuts. Their original cut was over 980,000. However, they submitted a budget request, which I'll go into some detail on, that was approved, which in essence, they reduced large areas, but then the request for the marketing campaign funding was approved, which saw their overall budget increase. And then the Office of the President saw a reduction of over 625,000. So that's where we are. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is an overview of where all those reductions occurred. So I'll just go through these briefly. So the Office of General Counsel, the records management program and position was eliminated from the budget. In the president's office, there was a fund that was used for executive search firms. So when we had a vice president or a dean position that we needed to use a search firm, we had a fund for that, which was eliminated from the budget. Our government relations program and position was eliminated from the budget. So we're going to be allocating those duties across some different individuals across campus. And then the president's office was able to reduce an additional over 42,000 from the budget as well. Events and outreach. So these are the university special events, the events that Allison Johnson in Marketing Communication puts on. We reduced that budget significantly. We still have a budget there, so we'll continue to do those events. They'll just be scaled back considerably, and we'll have to just be thrifty on those. There was also a fund to do the ongoing deferred maintenance in the Serval residence, the president's residence, and that fund was eliminated from the budget. The president's office also had a special projects fund that went primarily to support student organization activities and community outreach activities, and over $23,000 was eliminated from that fund. Marketing communications reduced over $140,000 in salary. And then the ISU magazine, which we used to send out twice a year in print format, will now move forward, will just be a digital magazine, and we're able to eliminate $45,000 that way. Marketing and communication also kind of just went line by line through their budget to see where, we could tighten the belt, and was able to eliminate $30,000. And then university events, George went through the budget with Greta and proposed $50,000 in the temp salary pool for those temporary employees that we bring on for events. So we still have the temporary salary pool, it was just reduced. So that kind of provides an overview of the reduction activities that we underwent to move into fiscal year 21. Next slide. Okay, and just touching back on that budget request that Marketing and Communications submitted. For the last couple of years, in fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20, we funded the marketing campaign, that statewide brand imaging campaign that you'd see billboards and TV ads and radio ads. We funded it the first year, almost at $1 million. The next year at $775,000. And in an effort to scale back, Stewart proposed 3 different options to the Leadership Council for them to fund. He presented one option of $135,000, so very scaled back, $255,000, and then $375,000. As the Leadership Council looked at all the budget requests that came in, because there were a few that came in, they were really looking to make decisions that would impact our enrollment potential and our retention of our students. Because one of the ways we're going to get back to financial stability is to, look at our enrollments and make sure that we're getting new students in the door and keeping the students once they're here to ensure that they can graduate. And that helps our financial position. And the marketing campaign was really seen as a tool to help that, because we were starting to see the results. We were starting to see our applications go up considerably prior to COVID. Our housing applications were up considerably prior to COVID. So they really wanted to ensure that we continued to invest in this area that had enrollment potential. So Jen, if you'll go to the next slide. So they did decide to fund the marketing campaign for another year at the level of $650,000, which will allow us to continue to have that statewide presence, to do outreach to potential students, to continue to move our enrollments in the right direction. So that's why you saw the marketing communication budget increase slightly. It was because that budget request was approved. So that's kind of the overview of the budget, what kind of happened through the budget process, and we can address any questions you might have about that once we move to Q&A. But I wanted to provide just an overview of what phase 4 looks like. We're calling this the new normal. So starting Monday, we will have units do a staged return to work. So this means that starting Monday, everyone won't be coming back to work, but we want to, bring people back slowly over time, so we ensure that when employees are back, that we have the physical distancing and the protocols in place to ensure we can keep the campus community safe. So we're also recommending that employees continue to use Zoom meetings whenever possible. And use that to increase our physical distance from one another. Employees are also asked to wear face coverings, and in fact, they're expected to wear face coverings. So what this means for us is that when you're in your office or when you're in a physically distant workspace, say a cubicle that's more than 6 feet away from your other colleagues, that's when you can take your face covering off. Once you leave your office, walk down the hall, go to the restroom, are in indoor public spaces, we ask that you do wear that face covering. And then outside, you do not need to wear your face covering so long as you can maintain that 6-foot physical distancing from other folks. This is really intended to slow the spread, to keep us moving forward in a positive direction where we're having decreased cases rather than increased cases, so we don't have to experience some of those prolonged restrictions that we've experienced over the last several months. So the university right now is in the process of procuring face coverings for faculty and staff. We don't have those in yet. So employees are asked, if they are back on campus, to bring their own face covering. And if they have difficulty procuring a face covering, talk with their supervisor, and supervisors can reach out to HR and the Bengal Depot to try to troubleshoot those situations. But we hope to have face coverings that we can distribute later in the summer. For vulnerable populations or those that are caregivers for vulnerable populations, we ask that you reach out to your supervisors and supervisors work with HR to navigate through that process. Supervisors are encouraged for vulnerable populations and caregivers of vulnerable populations to continue telework arrangements whenever possible. So HR is a great resource during this time, and they can help navigate through that process. And then buildings won't be unlocked until later this month. We still have some work to do to get our common spaces, our waiting areas and meeting spaces adequately kind of reconfigured to meet the public health guidance. So we'll spend the next few weeks working on that, and tentatively the date right now for most campus buildings is potentially June 29th is the date we're looking at to open up buildings. And then more information is available at isu.edu/roaringback. By the end of this week or the beginning of next, we should have comprehensive employee and supervisor guidelines posted for phase 4, which will have great detail on anything you need to know, questions you might have. And then, supervisors are available to answer questions. I'm available to answer questions, and HR is a great resource as well to answer questions. So that kind of ends the spiel I have for today. Before we jump into the question and answer portion, I just wanted to take a moment and say how grateful that I am for everyone on this call and all those who can make it on this call. The campus community has really come together. The last few months have been demanding, challenging, and frustrating. But we've also seen the campus really come together, which has been really cool to be a part of. Continued efforts to serve our students and our mission has been really appreciated. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And now I'll pass it to Ginny, and she can kind of explain the process for the Q&A portion of today, and we'll kick that off.
Awesome, thanks, Danny. So this will function much like other town halls you may have attended. You can publicly ask a question to everyone in the Zoom chat to the right of your screen, or you can select my name or start typing my name and ask it just to me, and then I'll ask that question anonymously. As I mentioned in the chat feature as well, we are recording, so this will be available on isu.edu/townhall later. It is also currently being streamed to live on YouTube for anyone who was unable to access the meeting after the 10-minute mark. So if you're ready, Danny, I will start asking some questions.
Sounds great.
Okay, perfect. First up is, will students be required to wear face coverings when they return to campus?
Right now, we spent a lot of time kind of researching this issue, looking at best practice, looking at public health guidance, and we will have the expectation that students do wear face coverings while in public indoor spaces. There will be some adjustments for things like the rec center or their housing facility that they're in that wouldn't be public. But anyways, the answer is, in essence, yes. There's still some details of how we're going to handle kind of enforcement, I would say. But really, Stuart has been working hard with a team of people to develop um, a campus communication plan that really emphasizes why this is important and appeals to kind of doing the right thing. So I know they're working hard on that and have some great content that'll be ready to go somewhat soon. So it'll be different, but we're excited that we can offer in-person instruction and an in-person experience, and it'll be different for sure. But we feel that it's important that we make these adjustments to still offer our students that in-person experience that so many students are saying we've surveyed, and they've said that's really what they want.
And speaking of returning to campus, stage 4 starts on Monday. Do you expect 100% of employees to be on campus in their seats altogether starting Monday?
Nope, we're going to have a phased approach to coming back to campus. So all of the division vice presidents have been charged with overseeing the return to work for their areas, and they're doing things like rotating work shifts. So half of the staff are here on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the other half are there on Tuesday and Thursday to just decrease the number of individuals in physical spaces so that distancing can be maintained. So as of Monday, no, we do not anticipate 100% of employees being back. It will be phased over time. Telework arrangements will continue to be in place for many employees, and in some cases, telework arrangements may be prolonged, particularly for those vulnerable populations and caregivers for vulnerable populations.
Thanks, Danny. A couple of questions on the same point. Do you have projections for fall enrollment? Are we expecting it to go up, down, stay flat?
Well, we projections are a little harder. What we have enrollment numbers that show where we were at on this day last year and where we're at on this day this year. So we have that comparative data for enrollment. It does show a decline in enrollment. That decline is decreasing. It was at 15, it's moved to 13, and then the latest I've heard is 10 or below 10. So we're getting there, and it's still, it's only June right now. And typically for ISU students, we've seen that our students have a tendency to get registered for classes right at the end of the summer. So we're still hopeful that we'll have flat or increased enrollment. Student Affairs is working really hard to do outreach to students, and Marketing Communication and the Office of Advancement has actually pitched in a lot to do outreach to returning students. So we have calling campaigns underway to individually reach out to prospective and returning students to help them navigate anything they might be dealing with financially, administratively, or otherwise. And we're really trying to put a lot of communication efforts around the fact that we are planning to have in-person instruction, because we've surveyed students and we know that's a major factor in them determining whether they want to come back to school in the fall.
Danny, next question. Will we be given face coverings to wear to work?
So we're currently sourcing those right now. We do not have them in yet. So right now, employees are asked to bring their own face covering to work. And then as soon as we get those in, the plan is to distribute to staff 2 cloth face coverings.
With phase 4 of the guidelines, will all departments have at least partial staff working on campus?
That's really up to the divisional vice president to interpret the guidelines and then phase back in the areas of their divisions that make the most sense to phase back in right now and then over time. So there's no kind of consistent answer that yes, at least all departments will have someone back. We've especially given that the buildings will continue to be locked through most of this month. We didn't feel that setting that as a standard was necessary, given that we're all doing the work from home thing. I am in my office today, which I'm super excited about. It feels really nice, but that's where we're at with that one.
Thanks, Danny. If cases continue to spike and the governor makes a questionable decision related to our health and return to the work areas, will the university stick with the governor or go separate?
No, I'm probably not going to speculate on that because we haven't been faced with that, and I honestly don't think that will happen. The governor has been really great about working with the the scientific experts and the public health officials on this issue, and we have great public health officials on this campus. Our health team, a subcommittee of health experts, has been kind of weighing into the weeds of every decision we're making to make sure it's a wise decision. So I'm pretty confident that the state of Idaho and the university will continue to assess the scientific data, see where we're at, and make the best decision to keep everyone safe. As a university, we're continuing to move forward based on guidelines from our central district health and the CDC. At the end of the day, it really comes down to we need to wear facial coverings. We need to physically distance from each other, and we need to wash our hands regularly. And if we can do those things in combination with all the other protocols that we have committees working on, I think that we can make a big impact in keeping Southeast Idaho, safe.
Given the public spaces on campus, such as the Performing Arts Center and Holt, employees will likely face patrons with strong feelings about facial coverings. Will employees be provided with guidance as far as de-escalating or refusing entrance, etc.?
Yeah, it'll be tricky to navigate. Right now, we have put together a kind of an operational plan for some of our larger events of what that will look like, and trying to get some of those protocols in place. And we intend to, now that we have that draft plan, to sit down with our central health department and talk through, all the different protocols in that. And we will definitely be developing the tools that employees need to be able to navigate those situations. It will be definitely tricky, but we luckily have the summer to start to build those tools, build those training resources, set the protocols, and then build all the training we need for our employees to operate as effectively as possible in those tough situations, which we just know are going to come up. We've seen them come up elsewhere, and we'll be prepared for that. So I know George is working really, really hard on that with Pauline and a whole committee of folks. So it's underway.
Thanks, Danny. Next question. Will we have fans in the stands for football this fall?
So the proposal that we developed, we started with football because that is, the largest event, and then we can tailor that plan to Other events, our hope is that we can. There'll be restrictions as seating capacity. We're working with the health department to figure out exactly what that sweet spot of seating capacity should be. So that decision hasn't been made yet, but the plan is to have, ingress, egress, and seating, concession protocols, everything in place. So hopefully we can move forward and have some in-person sporting events and other events in the fall.
Can we expect more video messages from President Satterley through the summer?
Indeed. We have one that'll go out probably tomorrow. Stuart's nodding, so tomorrow. And then our goal is to do them weekly. We might, some weeks have to do an email message perhaps instead of a video message, but our goal is to do a video message every week, just to keep information flowing, address any major questions that we're starting to hear, and just keep campus as connected as possible.
Follow-up question for that. It would be great if we could see President Satterley talk about face coverings and the importance of wearing them.
Yeah, we will, in his video this week that we'll post Friday, we filmed it yesterday, he does address face coverings, and I think you're right, we probably need to keep that conversation going. And I know that Stuart has, the team that he's working with around the kind of face covering communication plan. That's a great plan, and there's lots of great content that will be sent out, and Kevin will definitely reinforce those messages.
Okay. We are all caught up for the moment. Anybody else has any questions? There's no waiting. Do you have an update on the general counsel search?
Indeed. A campus communication went out, right? Of who? Yes. Okay. So we extended an offer to an individual named Blake Christensen, who's currently associate counsel at Montana State University in Bozeman. And he is due to start the end of July, hasn't picked an exact start date, is trying to navigate, how to do the move and transition through, during a global pandemic. But we're really excited to have Blake. He brings a lot of enthusiasm to the position, a real customer service mentality of how can he and the Office of the General Counsel be a resource, be a collaborator with campus. So he's super excited to be here. I was actually just on a call with him and the Office of the General Counsel right before this, and he will be a great addition to campus.
Additionally, in today's edition of Idaho State Today, there will be a formal announcement about Blake and General Counsel.
Perfect.
Okay. Next question, is there going to be an extensive media campaign once all the event protocols are determined?
There will be a communication plan developed. Once we have our plan for fall events, particularly our sporting events, that's where we're going to start in place. Our goal is to get that plan, kind of transformed into a communication plan, so we can give the community and our campus community just information about what that's going to look like. For ticket holders, get that information to them as soon as possible. So Pauline and George have been working diligently on that. And George, if you have anything to add.
No, we're just, I think that everything's in place. Once we go ahead and are able to determine the capacity issue with the health department, then we'll unveil all the other necessary information to the public. The big thing, the concern is to make sure that we get that information out so that more people are aware of the situation and know the expectations. So that's my biggest concern, is the expectations when people arrive.
Yeah. Thanks, George.
Okay. And given the change in the fall semester schedule, does fall commencement or winter commencement still make sense, since students will be gone and might not be coming back?
So we haven't made any decisions about changing commencement right now. We're still hopeful that we can hold a December commencement, because many of the students that were going to be walking at commencement this May weren't able to do so. So our plan right now is to kind of get those large event protocols in place, and then we'll bring forward a decision point to the university leadership regarding what we're going to do with December commencement, to make sure that we can celebrate our students, but ultimately maintain a safe environment.
This is not a question, just wanted to say thanks for hosting these town halls, much appreciated.
No problem. I think we're gonna probably continue to use this as a tool. It's a great way to stay connected and just have some real good virtual FaceTime.
Okay. So I have a question. So you mentioned the campaigns that some of us have been doing to connect with currently enrolled students. Is there anything else that any of us could do, maybe as we see student employees on campus? What else can we be doing to help support enrollment efforts?
Dr. Lynn Reddington, our Vice President for Student Affairs, she talks a lot just about connecting with students and leveraging the relationships you have with students that you know to connect with them, and then see what they can do to connect with their network of students as well. So if you've had student employees that you've worked with, or if you're a faculty member and you have students that you've had previously, reach out to them, say, how are you doing? I'm excited to see you from 6 feet away in the fall, and just have that personal connection that really allows students to feel like ISU is their home. It's the place they can come back to, and the place they should come back to in the fall. Because the last thing we want is during uncertain economic times for a large percentage of our students to stop out and not get the degree and have the sunk costs of an education that they weren't able to walk away with the degree that's going to allow them to go out and better their lives. So just leverage the people your network, and encourage them to leverage their network, and I think that will just trickle from there. I think you're on mute.
Muted, sorry about that. I think that's all the questions that we're seeing so far. So I think I might turn it over to you for conclusion.
All right, well, I don't have any major closing remarks. I appreciate everyone taking the time today to be a part of these town halls, and I appreciate everyone's efforts during these times. It's not been easy, but we've really stepped up and shown an amazing nimbleness and responsiveness and flexibility that I'm sure, critics might have thought higher ed can't be this nimble. And we did it, and we're responding, and we're preparing for fall, which will be different for sure, but we're gonna make it work, and we're gonna make it great for our students. And happy Thursday, and I hope everyone has a good weekend.